tranche, which is the 600 million, there's still some hurdle we need to cross, because we need to tighten our revenue mobilization so that we'll be able to meet those standards and get the second tranches. So where are we coming from? Just by way of background, let's look at how we have where we've gotten to. So yes, of course, government says it will review its flagship programs. You've heard the Minister for Information saying that government already decided to review the programs long before even the IMF spoke about it. It says there's a need for assessment of efficiency, effectiveness, and value for money. What else is this review seeking to do? But look at the budget allocation to flagship programs from 2019 to 2023. It's at 11.34 billion. That's from 2019 to 2023. That is how much has gone into the free SHS. If you look at the other flagship programs, the Planting for Food and Jobs, 2.49 billion has gone into it. One district, one factory, 823.3 million has gone into that. The school feeding program has taken 3 billion. And then if you look at the livelihood empowerment against poverty, 1.16 billion has gone into that. Water and sanitation initiative, 354.5 million. Now, the IMF made its own assessment on the free SHS, and it came out with this. It says that the free SHS program, which covers the full course of secondary education, has helped increase only enrollment, but it's usually poorly targeted. Why is the IMF saying that? The IMF says that all that government has done over the period is to increase the enrollment in SHS. But if you look at the outcome, it really hasn't been up to that standard that we're looking for. So it says primary education should be strengthened. It also requesting that teacher training should be improved to be able to bridge the gap. Performance-based funding should be improved. That's according to the IMF. But if you look at the education expenditure in billions, you can see that in 2019, we spent 4.9 billion. Look at 2020, we spent 11.6 billion. And each year we keep going up. In 2021, we spent 15.6 billion. And in 2022, we spent 17.8 billion. But this is a budgetary allocation for free SHS. For free SHS in 2019, we spent 1.68 billion. You look at 2020, 2.43 billion. And then in 2021, we spent less. Remember that a lot of government's budgetary allocation goes into the free SHS. And it's been one of the conversations we've been having, that the free SHS has been draining government. What can we do? I mean, this review conversation actually has been here all this while, even before the IMF came in, that government must review it to allow other people take up certain burdens so that the burden on government will lessen. So in 2021, you realize that government pumped only 1.97 into the free SHS. In 2022, it went up to 2.3 billion, and in 2023, 2.96. Now, government's own review that I was talking about, and today the information minister Paul Nkrumah also alluded to that fact. Finance minister had said this long ago. He said that, I mean, there's a means to be given the opportunity for some people to pay fees for the awards. Government is collecting data to determine which segments of society should benefit from the benefits. And just today, we are hearing Kojo Nkrumah also alluding to that fact. So we're asking, how should this review be? Today we're focusing on the case of the free SHS. What kind of review are we talking about? Remember that conversation about the GES boss and the Minister for Education having a banter. Is there a review or no review? I mean, what kind of review has government agreed to have right now? which kind of review will be satisfactory to all of us. My guest tonight, Professor William Kwesi Pepera. He is an associate professor of finance at the Andrews University, Michigan. And I also have been joined by Dr. Peter Anti. He is an education economist and also executive director of IFEST. I've also been joined by Mr. Nochukotoi. He is a ranking member for education of the Committee of Parliament. Kofi Asare is executive director of Africa Education Watch, and Kwesi Kwarteng is spokesperson of the Ministry of Education. All of them will be joining me tonight. Let's have a conversation after this break.
Can he tee up someone in red? And it goes to one!
Too much, sir! After 5 Champions League, you want to know? I be the real goat, chairman. I be the real goat. The left magician, the left magician.
Who is the goat? Ghana Jollof or Nigeria Jollof?
Ghana Jollof has no co-equal. The smell alone. Oh my God!
On that shift, you two the lie, eh? Now the same stew when they use cook the rice and then they go put them for top.
You are lying. Ghana Jollof.
Are you idiot? Forget everybody. Yeah, my guy. Put some respect on the goat. On the goat. The only goat I know lives in Tama. Every year, we dey give to you back. We are talking about PET. I want to hear the face. Except be the goat. My guy, he be the goat.
Though our choice of goats may differ in football, music, and jollof, Alomo Bitters always brings us together. Alomo, experience greatness in every moment.
Drink responsibly. Not for sale to persons under 18 or recommended to pregnant women. This advert is FDA approved.
EcoBank salary account. With the EcoBank salary account, you will enjoy free life insurance, free debit card, save while you spend, and an amazing chance to double your salary. And even more consolation rewards in the EcoBank double salary promo reloaded.
Guy, this EcoBank salary account sounds interesting. What do you think?
Yara. But maybe next time, Charlie, you know what? I'd go shine my shoe.
Hey! Yo, myself, I'd go check my BP.
We going up, never go down, and we stay fly.
Chairman.
See the white sign it here.
Who be late to say?
Open an EcoBank salary account today for a lifetime of benefits. You also stand a chance to win more than double your salary in the EcoBank Double Salary Promo Reloaded from now till July 31st. Terms and conditions apply. This is under the supervision of the National Lotteries Authority under the Caritas Lottery Platform.
My name is Tina. I am a person living with HIV. I got to know my HIV status after I gave birth and lost the child because of HIV. In those days, prevention of mother-to-child transmission services had low patronage due to fear and stigmatization. Today, many HIV-positive women have delivered negative children. I follow the guidelines and take my HIV medicine called ARVs every day, as prescribed by my doctor. This makes me strong and healthy, and also prevents me from passing HIV onto any future child. Please, avail yourself for PMTCT services when pregnant. It is the only way to ensure you do not pass the HIV onto your baby during birth or pregnancy. If you have tested for HIV recently and it was negative, test again when pregnant. If you have tested positive, go to the hospital after birth as directed by your healthcare provider. Your baby will be given medicine immediately and tested to ensure baby and mother are well. Let us work together to have an HIV-free generation.
Our children must be free to shine.
Whiskey. Wash. All of a sudden, my voice I hear different. And when you saw a call. Barman, bring me the honey whiskey. You know the one? Black Rock whiskey.
Honey whiskey.
Chalet, honey near their frau. Black Rock whiskey is strong. Now so taste me is smooth and it goes down easy. Excuse me. Barman, bring my friend one Black Rock whiskey.
Black Rock whiskey, blended with natural honey flavor.
Hey, what's up?
Barman.
Hey, what the over Sikanton Sada? You've been to a man, no?
Black Rock whiskey can be a feeling smoothness, no?
Drink responsibly. Not for sale to persons under 18 years of age and not recommended for pregnant women. This advertisement has been vetted and approved by the FDA.
There are days when you think, whoa, today I've earned it. So order a Global. Days when plans run longer. What if we order a Global? Or days when you can't control everything. Oh yes, because on Global, you can order anything you want. Global, you order, we deliver.
For crystal clear and thrilling podcasts and live shows, download and listen to us on Apple, Spotify, TuneIn, Google Podcasts, MyJoy Online, Amazon services like Echo, Amazon Music, and Audible, Stitcher, Adom Online, Overcast, and Pandora. Take note of everything. Sign up for the multimedia digital platforms now to stay updated.
Supernatural Empowerment Summits 2023. Meet the revivalists, the heads of global denominations, and the kingmakers. This year, in Archbishop Charles Ojenesari's 40th year in a miracle ministry and the 10th Supernatural Empowerment Summit, expect life-changing insights for ministry and impartation for the next level. Host and speaker, Archbishop Charles Ojenesari. Other speakers from Ghana, Dr. Robert Ampia Kofi, Apostle Eric Nyamiche, Reverend Dr. Stephen Wengam, and also Bishop Joseph Imakando, Zambia, Bishop Joseph Matera, USA, Apostle Yves Castano, Congo, Apostle Abraham Gaji, Cote d'Ivoire. Date, Monday 22nd to Friday 26th May 2023. Time, evening session, 5:30 p.m. daily. Morning session, 8:30 a.m. daily start on Tuesday. Venue, Perez Dome, Jolu Junction, Accra, Ghana. Contact, +233-548-633-650 or www.scsummits.org. Supernatural Empowerment Summits 2023.
For crystal clear and thrilling podcasts and live shows, download and listen to us on Apple, Spotify, TuneIn, Google Podcasts, MyJoy Online, Amazon services like Echo, Amazon Music, and Audible, Stitcher, Adom Online, Overcast, and Pandora. Take note of everything. Sign up for the multimedia digital platforms now to stay updated.
Welcome back to PM Express. Tonight we are we're having a conversation about government's intention to review its flagship programs after the IMF actually issued a report saying that one of its flagship programs, the Free SHS, is poorly targeted and is also actually achieving poor educational outcomes. Tonight, I'm grateful that all of you have joined me. Professor William Kwesi Pepra, Peter Nochu Kotoi, Kofi Asari, and Kwesi Kwatin. Dr. Anti has also joined us. Let me start with you, Professor Pepra. Government is taking all these steps to review its flagship programs to ensure effectiveness and value for money. We know these programs will cost government 9.2 billion in 2023. Free SHS alone is taking 3 billion Ghana cedis. Now, in terms of a review, should government be focusing on? Is it to dissolve some of these flagship programs, to merge some of them, or just cut costs? What exactly should go into reviewing the flagship programs?
Dr. Rick here. Another sign you're becoming your parents is getting particular about details that don't matter.
The craziest thing happened when we got tacos the other day. Was it Wednesday or Thursday we got tacos? I know it wasn't Tuesday because that's when I went to my hairdresser. Shoot, what day was it?
See how we all lost interest there?
Progressive can't help you from becoming your parents, but we can help you compare rates on home insurance with Home Quote Explorer. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company affiliates and third-party insurers. Comparison rates not available in all states or situations. Prices vary based on how you buy.
Good evening and thank you for getting me for this program. I think that this issue, we have already discussed this or mentioned it in some time past. Then we admonish government to have a look at all the existing programs because of the cost implications. We noticed that though government had good intentions in coming up with these programs, the high expenditure patterns were not in line with the revenue generation in the country. If you look at the free SHS, for instance, yes, worldwide, education is very important, or it's a way that we assess how a country is being developed. But then we also have to match it against the cost implications. The government has an agenda to make it free, and from the way they implemented it, it was totally free. That is where the problem comes in. Free uniforms, free books, giving food, which I think to me,
there's a bit of
done it in a way that would have helped. In Ghana, we have the day school and the boarding school, and we could have had an approach that to reduce the cost in a way that will benefit both the day school and the boarding school. Instead of, if you look at it, it did serve a purpose to have, in a way, equality for both those in the boarding school and the day school, because if you had a day school, those who were in the boarding school were...
There's a bit of a connection problem with your line, Professor Pepper. If you could reposition yourself so we can have a conversation, because your line keeps breaking. Whilst you do that, let me bring in Dr. Peter Anti. The IMF is now casting doubt on the outcome, the education or learning outcomes of the free SHS. As it says that it's only increasing enrollment and not actually the quality. Is there a fair assessment from what you know?
Thank you very much.
For me? Yes, sure.
Good evening to everyone. Because I think that they have done the assessment and they are making this point not in a vacuum. They know what they are talking about. You see, if you look at our education system, there are variables that have been classified as quality variables by the Ministry of Education and then the Ghana Education Service. But these quality variables are used to assess how we are delivering education to the people who need it. So when you increase access, what you are technically doing is that you are supposed to make sure that there is corresponding improvement in the quality variables to ensure that those quality variables do not suffer because of the increase in enrollment. One of them is student to teacher ratio. And if you look at the number of students that are accessing secondary education now, you look at it and you see that class sizes have increased. So if I'm an external evaluator and I come and I'm evaluating your program, and I see that in your policy document, you are saying that you need a student to teacher ratio of 1:25, between 25 and 35. And you are having one teacher is to 65, one teacher is to 58 students. It means that there's a problem with your quality variable in that perspective. There are other quality variables, including one student to desk ratio, student to textbook ratio, and all those things. And these things are supposed to lead to an expected outcome or output, which is technically the performance that the students would put up when they write their BC. And then an extension of the students' contribution to the total development of the country, which we call educational outcomes. So I think that they look at all these things and they realize that truly we have increased access, but by extension, we have downplayed on the variables of quality, and that is leading to the poor learning outcomes that they are talking about.
Professor Pepa, are you back on the line? I mean, earlier we were talking about what kind of review should go into government flagship programs.
Yes, I think if the line is very clear now. So, as I've mentioned, there are some inequalities in the form of those who are in a day school and also the boarding house. Those in the boarding house were benefiting more than those in the day school. So can we try to eliminate some of the items, that is in a way to reduce it. Also, the cost of government providing uniforms and other items, government could have a look at it and also have a review in that instance. When it comes to providing meals also, can it be that only one meal, hot meal, is provided so that parents can also provide meals for the rest? I'm saying this in a form of equality. Those in a day school will only eat one meal. Those in a boarding school eat 3 times in a day. But the quality of food being provided, we notice that it has become a challenge. Some of the videos we have seen of the meal being served, the nutrition value is also being talked about. So if we limit the serving of the food to one hot meal, and then we ask parents to also contribute. I just want to make a quote referring into the finance minister. He says that we are in a period of burden sharing. So in the form of the review, this is the time that we talk about the burden sharing. Government will have to revise it and then make sure that all parents who can also afford will come in. And then we will understand that, yes, we are sharing the burden at this moment.
Mr. Nochukoto, I hope you've joined us. In fact, I remember that the minority some time ago, or right from the onset, the minority had issues of the free SHS dealing with quantity and not quality. Does this assessment from the IMF cement your fears? Do we have Mr. Nochukoto on the line? Right, so let me bring in Kofi Asare. Kofi Asare, your organization is one of the CSOs that had petitioned the IMF regarding expenditure cuts in the education sector. How does this resolve by government come across to you?
Resolve by government to do what?
To review the free SHS policy.
I'm not sure government has resolved to review the free SHS policy.
Well, it's part of its flagship programs that it says it's going to review based on the advice from the IMF.
Okay, well, that is not my understanding of what the Minister of Information said this afternoon. And I don't have any indication that government is going to review it. And I'll be surprised if government reviews it. Because the communication on government position on the lack of targeting of the free senior high school is that government is already aware that the free senior high school is not targeted. So the World Bank said nothing new. And that the World Bank, by saying that the policy is not targeted, does not mean government is saying they will target it. That's what Honorable Kojo Oponkruma said clear on Joy FM this afternoon. So to wait until we see any formal communication from government indicating that it intends to review the free senior school program, I think we will just be doing a speculative exercise as we've been doing all this while.
Thankfully, the spokesperson of the Ministry of Education is on this on this show. He'll be giving us some answers. So you go ahead.
Fantastic. I'll be happy if. But what I'm saying is that I heard the information minister this afternoon And I heard him unequivocally saying that government is already aware that the free senior high school is not targeted. Then he went ahead and said that it wasn't the intention of government to target the free senior high school. That is why it is untargeted. And so the World Bank, by finding or making a finding to the effect that the policy is not targeted, is nothing new, because they are already aware. It is not a mistake that it's not, it is untargeted. My understanding of the logic of that conversation is that government is not receiving it.
Right, Kwesi Kwarteng, is that the case?
Yeah, first of all, good evening to you and to the co-panelists and, of course, to viewers. On the subject of whether or not the free SHS is going to be reviewed, particularly within the context of what is being discussed, I mean, clearly said decisions are policy decisions, and you and I know very well that policy decisions are made by either the president or the minister. The briefing I have from my minister does not point to that direction, that indeed we are going to have any review with such. But of course, I am here and I'll be able to speak to some of the findings or some of the claims that are in the reports that is out. Of course, first of all, let me say that within the broader context, I would say that it's a good feedback, and then it's going to help us pay more attention to the variables that contribute to improving learning outcomes. But I think if you look at it broadly, if you recall, somewhere in 2013, UNESCO brought this report that is termed the Global Learning Crisis. And then within that report, UNESCO indeed admitted that all over the world there is a learning crisis. If you allow me to quote sections of the report briefly, say that the crisis in quality learning is evident. Despite increased enrollments, an estimated 250 million children cannot read, write, or count well. So, I mean, all over the world, UNESCO makes such level of admission. But of course, when it comes to Ghana, for instance, within the jurisdiction of Ghana, there has been some significant improvement ever since this report came out. And particularly even when we even take it from the basic level, especially when you look at variables like proficiency in English. In 2015, for instance, when the country conducted a test to that effect, you realize that only 2% of students were able to speak well in English and also read and write English. But of course, when the same test was conducted somewhere in 2022, that is the national standardized test, you realize that there was a high and marginal improvement to 38%. So yes, the broader template is there that the IMF may borrow, I mean, particularly referencing what UNESCO had earlier on brought. But of course, within the context of Ghana, within the case of Ghana, there has been some significant improvement. Now, to the substantive subject matter of free SHS, it being ill-targeted or not targeted well. I think, first of all, we have to, first of all, understand the essence of the free SHS in the first place. Then, based on that, we'll be able to advance an argument on this whole point about targeting. I mean, initially, you recall that we had close to 100,000 students that complete basic schools and are unable to attend the free SHS or unable to proceed to the SHS level. So based on this, you had the president making an intervention and making a promise that we are going to address such a situation. And so at the end of the day, free SHS policy came to address such a concern. So, I mean, it was a question of whether or not you are denying 100,000 students access to education every year. So we made that bold decision and said that we are not going to, deny 100,000 students access to education. But of course, the contention has always been this. If you look at countries where the free SHS policy has been targeted, those are countries that have very strong and reliable data on income. For instance, if you come to Ghana, for instance, especially within our informal economies, I mean, you are unable to look into the face of, let's say, the woman at Abosokai or the woman at Makola and say that because government does not have any structures and system to track the revenues or the income that you make annually, based on that, your child qualifies or do not qualify for free SHS. Of course, the argument, if you want to even sustain such logic, what it essentially means is that you may only be looking at those incomes that are very reliable and always declared. That is about the 700,000 or so people that are on government payroll annually. And those are the people that government is going to look into their face and say that, well, because you are able to track your income, then it means that at the end of the day, you are able to afford education at every level. So, yes, at the end of the day, until we get a very reliable system that will be able to help us to track the various income that we as a people generate. And of course, beyond the system too, until citizens, also develop that habit of reporting income truthfully, so that government will be able to know that this person is eligible for free education, that person is not eligible for free education. We will be denying most students access to education. And that will take us to the earlier problem that we had, where more than 100,000 students were denied access to education at the end of the day. But of course, in London, if you read carefully the report also alludes to the fact that if you look at the educational outcomes, there has not been improvement. Of course, reference is also made to the free SHS policy. I do not fault the IMF, because all over the world, globally, research has proven that when enrollment increases, it has a corresponding effect on learning outcomes, and that effect is always on a decreasing tangent. So IMF is not entirely wrong when they make such a claim. But if you look at
a feasibility study before introducing the program? Did you take all of these into consideration before introducing the program?
I was making a very strong point. So if I had allowed to land, you will get the answer in the follow-up question. So what I'm saying is that if you look at globally, all over the world, research has proven, and of course there are other data that speaks to the fact that if you increase enrollment, learning outcomes actually reduces. But in the case of Ghana did something very novel and was able to defy gravity. Because, if you look at the data that pertains to Ghana, this is the data that is not only available to the Ministry of Education, but the whole of Ghana. If you look at the data, particularly if you look at the past 8 years, an 8-year analysis, trend analysis, particularly from 2015 to 2022, of the aggregate percentage passes in N1 to C6 in the 4 core subjects areas, shows improvement with significant improvements in the past 4 years, where average of 60% and above. So, clearly the report also said that it is important to know that 2020, 2021, and 2022 candidates are the free SHS students. Okay. So yes, the general rule is there, the general template is there that IMF is alluding to say. But if you look at the case of Ghana, and within the context of Ghana, we were able to defy the odds and then defy gravity. So the current data when it comes to educational outcomes within the free SHS policy rather negates the worldwide proven research that has been that I'm sure IMF is actually speaking to. So in the case of Ghana,
So I want to be clear here. What was the objective of the free SHS? To increase enrollment or to produce quality students?
This is a leading question, but of course, the objective has to do with both. Because at the end of the day, as a country, it depends on how you see education. We as a government, we take education as an investment and of course as a way of improving our socio-economic transformation. Because, all over the world, if you look at countries that have developed, those are countries whose educational outcomes, particularly if you look at their gross tertiary enrollment ratio, has hit the mark of 40%. And so the two have to go together. At the end of the day, at the same time, whilst you are increasing enrollment to make sure that your gross tertiary enrollment ratio hits that 40% mark and beyond. Because, clearly, if you look at countries like Singapore, more than 40%. If you look at America, around 76%. If you look at South Korea, around 96%. These are countries that, as soon as you hit the 40% mark, the country develop. So, the president's objective was to transform our socio-economic fortunes through education. So, you can only do that by coupling increasing enrollment, of course, at the same time, making sure that there is quality. But the basic principle that I'm saying is that all over the world, and when enrollment increases, outcome or educational outcome reduces. So IMF is not wrong with that assessment. But I'm saying that within the case of Ghana, we have been able to defy logic, have been able to defy gravity, and have set a new precedent that I'm sure researchers may also have to even look at. And I'm sure the subsequent question have to be, what did we do different to be able to defy the gravity that existed? So in the case of Ghana, what IMF said, even though it is the general rule, we have made an exception to that.
Well, the IMF has an advice for Ghana, and it says that primary education must be strengthened, teacher training should be improved, and performance-based funding should be improved. And in terms of the review that it's talking about, we'll come back and look at what should go into this, and also look at the extent to which this is tied to the second tranche of the bailouts that we are expecting. But let me bring in Mr. Nochukotoi. I quite remember that the minority have had cause to complain about the fact that the free SHS is actually churning out quantity and not quality. Does this revelation by the IMF actually cement the fear that you were expressing then?
Yeah, thank you very much, and good evening to you and to your viewers. The concerns raised by the IMF are exactly what the minority have been saying over the years. Since the inception of the program in 2017, we cautioned government that there was a need to look at the program very carefully before its implementation. Because in 2015, when the NDC government started implementing it on a progressively free approach, we discovered or realized that there were going to be a number of challenges that we'll have to grapple with. The first was a space for classroom, another for accommodation, and then teacher population. These were the three major problems we identified, in addition to funding, as I said. So what the government wanted to do at the time was to expand facilities in the existing secondary schools, and then again start the establishment of additional 200 new secondary schools, so that they will create enough accessibility for anyone who qualifies to go to senior high school. That's why President Mahama introduced or established the 200 blocks that he started. Now, what happened was that when the new government took over in 2017 and decided to expand the program, we cautioned them that these were the challenges that we foresaw. So if they could do something about them, well, government did not heed the advice that we gave and describe our attitude as propaganda. So we have been watching and telling government that these are the challenges. The first year there was no major problem because the number was not too big. But we all knew that the free senior high school would increase enrollment by all means. So there was a need to plan ahead of time. This was the failure of government in the first place. Then also, in 2015, when we started the program, we did what we call targeting. If you remember, we had a secondary improvement project by which we were giving stipends to selected pupils or students, 60% for females and 40% for females, so that we will give them enough money so that they could buy a few things that they would need, because some of them were very, very vulnerable and coming from poor homes. So when this government took over, they stopped that facility also, thinking that once it was wholesale or there was no need for targeting. So I am not surprised that the IMF said that the program was good, but it was poorly targeted. That's what I can say so far.
Kofi Asare, just like you indicated that you don't believe that government is willing to review the free SHS because of what has gone on with this review, and I did indicate from the beginning that, we remember, it's quite fresh in our minds, when the GES boss, the former GES boss, made mention that there was going to be a review. That was countered by the Minister of Education, that there was not going to be a review, even though we had heard the Finance Minister talk about review. So this whole review thing, we've been back and forth with it. But if indeed, if government really wants to review this free SHS, what kind of review will be satisfactory?
Okay, thank you. Let me quickly say this, that it is not true that we don't have the capacity, we don't have the data and the capacity to determine who can pay and who cannot pay for the feeding of their children. Not the entire fees, just the feeding. Because all calls for review have virtually situated around asking parents who are in a position or capacity to pay for the feeding of their wards to do so. Because the same parents were feeding their wards in junior high school 3. And then the next month they cross to senior high school and suddenly the parents become so poor that they can't feed their children. And the same parents will continue feeding their children at tertiary. So we have always submitted that by targeting 1, we have data on the poorest households in Ghana. It is not true that we don't have data. Other than that, what is the LEAP Management Secretary doing? We have been administering LEAP to about 1 million beneficiaries in over 300,000 households. Bi-monthly, we send them cash grants up to 88 cedis per household. Are you telling me that, Aisha, you have received any LEAP memo before? The reason why Aisha or Peter, none of you have ever received any LEAP memo before, means that you are not poor. It means you do not meet the definition of very poor people per Ghana's social protection policy. So the impression shouldn't be created. And also, our public institutions shouldn't be downgraded as if they don't have the capacity they have because we don't want to start a free senior high school. No, we have the capacity to target if we want to do that. The second reason why I appreciate government is not interested in reviewing the program. So as for the statistics excuse, it is dead because LEAP has been implemented for a long time, and the fact that I am not receiving MOMO from LEAP means that I am not in their database of poor people. Over 1 million people are benefiting from LEAP, and so it is not true that we don't have data on poor households. We have data in about 6 or 7 regions. If government wants to expand the Ghana Household Registry to cover the whole of Ghana, it can be done within 11 months once there is funding. But the commitment is not there because once the data is there for the whole country, there will be pressure on government to target. The second is that not targeting the free senior high school brings a procurement benefit. That is the reality. The reality is that if you ask, according to the multidimensional poverty report, okay, about 45% of Ghanaians are multidimensionally poor. I'm using multidimensional poverty because that is the highest level you can get because it combines both income poverty and other human development indicators, including access to water, sanitation, housing, etc., health, etc. But if I have to talk about income poverty, we might go below 20%. So let me take the highest one, multidimensional poverty, about 45%. It means that at least half of Ghanaians should be able to feed their children, not pay fees, not pay for utilities, not pay for uniform. You take out just feeding. Feeding takes care of about 70% of the free senior high school budget. The 3.1 billion we are spending on free senior high school this year, feeding will take about 2/3 just feeding. So if half of Ghanaians can feed their children, and you have data on the poorest households in about half of Ghana, all you need to do is to continue exercise, complete the process, and then target. But the more we don't target the free senior high school, the more government gives more contracts for supply food. Do you know that we are spending more than 2 billion this year in buying food? And in politics, procurement is key. Because the same businessmen who are politically connected, who are supplying food. So whenever you raise the issue of targeting, then it means that some parents will have to pay fees to the schools. Immediately parents start paying fees to the schools will now have to buy the food. Don't forget that prior to free senior high school, schools were buying their food. But free senior high school came with a procurement benefit where government centralized the procurement of food, such that only 1 or 2 companies are buying oil for all the schools in Ghana. That's huge, millions of cedis. So any attempt to bring in any reform which will end up decentralizing what has been centralized through procurement as procurement benefits to the politicians will be resisted because you are transferring someone's business to the headmasters. And so you shouldn't be surprised that I believe the government will not review the free senior high school policy.
Well, let's give government benefit of doubt, because I mean, all this while government has not really accepted that review thing. This time it says it will do it because the IMF has advised.
This morning I was in a meeting with the IMF the whole morning till afternoon. I mean, we met the IMF team. It hasn't said it to do it. But you see, the final reason why government is not interested in reviewing it is because government still doesn't appreciate the externalities, the negative implications of keeping the free senior high school policy this way on basic education. Look at the pre-tertiary budget, the pre-tertiary education budget. Okay, if you look at the discretionary budget, take out salaries, which is non-discretionary. Look at the discretionary budget, infrastructure and goods and services. Okay, that is where teaching and learning, which produces the learning outcomes we're talking about, is administered. If you look at the discretionary budget of the pre-tertiary sector, about 96% of all the money there is free senior high school. Only 4% is going to basic education.
Well, Professor Bepra,
so it means that you see you cannot maintain a superfluous and very expensive, extravagant policy like that without hurting basic, because we are a country with resource limitations. Are you America?
Let me bring back Kwesi Kwarteng before I come to you.
Will not say anything.
Before I come to you.
I have a lot to say. Don't worry.
Kwesi Kwarteng, so the advice from the IMF is actually for you to strengthen primary education, and then also improve teacher training, and then also improve performance based on funding, and that the funding should be improved. What's the plan?
I think earlier on I even made such points. If you recall, when I gave my first submission, I said that, for instance, in 2015, for instance, I mean, within the entire country, when it comes to proficiency in English, only 2% of basic school students could speak and write English. But as I speak to you, it's improved to 38%. I'm not sure it took a miracle to do that. Obviously, it took, particular and strenuous interventions to get there. But of course, before I even come back to, your question, I think it's important I address some of the things that Kofi has said. Kofi, on one side, said that, the country is capable of organizing whatever data so that we'll be able to know which people are poor, for this whole argument about targeting. And my question is, very simple. And it's a question that addresses an issue or question of logical consistency. At the end of the day, whilst the data is being organized by whichever institution or whichever organization or whichever state institution, what happens to, the children? Whose child is supposed to stay home whilst the data is being organized? So, for instance, if you look at when Free SHS started.
But this data thing was said since 2018 by the finance minister.
Of course, I'm not sure the collation of data is an event. It is a process. And clearly in 2018, if you look at, this loophole point that he's making, I'm sure there has been improvement in the organization of the data. It's even the more reason why, as a country, we need to support the government's digitization agenda. But of course, the question remains unchanged. That as the data is being organized, to be able to know that woman in Abosokan who owns 3 shops, but of course, because government is unable to track revenue, the government say that such a woman probably on the face value is poor. And Kwesi Kwarteng, whose revenue can be tracked, I don't believe, for instance, I'm being paid 1,000 or 2,000 cedis. Government looks into my face and say that because my revenue or my income can be tracked, I am rich, and so for that matter, my child will not enjoy free SHS.
So how long will it take government to be able to get this data?
I am saying that whilst that process, you see, there is a fundamental question that has not been answered. Whilst that process is ongoing, whose child will stay home? What they essentially mean is that within this 5-year period, we would have probably denied more than 500,000 Ghanaians access to education. So yes, I agree the two can go together. We do not necessarily have to finish the compilation of the data before we are able to implement free SHS. The free SHS can be there, it will be ongoing, fast at the same time.
What's the plan? I'm running out of time, Kwesi.
So I'm saying that if you look at the question that you asked, I'm saying that when it comes to getting a very reliable data. We can be doing that as a state, but it doesn't prevent us from denying, ordinary citizens access to education. But of course, London, Kofi made a claim that only 4% of budgetary allocation is made to the basic schools. And for that matter, basic schools have been neglected at the expense of secondary schools. That assertion has always been very weak and frivolous. Because for me, if you look at it clearly, there exists other source of funding outside what government of Ghana contributes. For instance, at the basic schools level, you have govt, which is an external funding. That is not a GOG contribution. Again, if you look at the cost of, the cost of even, for instance, educating students at each level, it is not the same. You cannot, for instance, say that the cost of infrastructure at, say, SHS level is the same as the cost of infrastructure at the primary school level. So at no point would the allocation ever be the same. And so, these are basic things that Kofi may have to look at when trying to make that very simplistic argument that government has neglected basic schools at the expense of senior high school. Because it costs differently to educate different categories of students. And beyond that, like I earlier indicated, there exists other source of funding. So until you are able to holistically look at the other source of fundings and then even say that this is the percentage expenditure that was made, you cannot just look at it on the face value and then use percentages allocated.
But see, you still haven't told me the plan, but I'm running out of time. Let me give the opportunity to Dr. Anti. What do you expect from a review, Dr. Anti?
I am addressing a lot of issues at the same time. So if you want one to be profound, you are not the host.
Dr. Anti, what do you want to see in a review? Kwesi, I'll come back to you. Let Dr. Anti speak. I'll come back to you.
As you've been saying things that are not true. So you should go back to the objectives of the policy. There are three things that the program hinges on: access, quality, and equity. The very moment they started implementing the policy using the wholesale model or equality model, they destroyed their own objectives of the policy. So we should go back to the objectives. We should implement the policy by instituting the equity financing model. And I keep asking myself, how was this policy presented to the World Bank? Because the World Bank is treated under social spending. And if a policy is treated under social spending, the end result is that they are looking for targeting. So in one breath, the government seems to project this to the outside world that this is a social policy. Okay, but when they come to us, they present this to us as a political policy. And that is why they are not able to touch it and they cannot touch it. Let me make this last point. Literature is not conclusive on the effect on enrollment on quality. In some countries, they are able to increase enrollment. At the same time, they are able to improve their quality. In Ghana, we cannot use WASI results to say that we have been able to improve on quality, because when you dig down into the data, there are schools that were scoring more than 50% previously, and now they are scoring 0%. Would you attribute that to free SHS? Because free SHS has been applied to all schools across the length and breadth of the country. So if schools are going down now, would you say that it is because of the free SHS? Because we are saying that those schools that are performing well is because of free SHS. So those schools that are not performing well, are we saying that their performance are dipping because of free SHS? These are scientific things that we need to pay attention to and stop the excuses and the political attachment that we are attaching to this very important policy that has the potential to transform our country.
Right.
If we don't stop the politics, we will not be able to get the full benefits of a policy like the free SHS.
But Professor Prepra, to what extent are these is this review tied to the second tranche of the IMF bailout?
So Ghana is expected to show that we have reduced our expenditure patterns, and then one of them is to make sure that the free SHS, the cost implication is looked at. And we cannot still be spending. So let me put it there. Ministry of Education with its 17 billion cedis in terms of budgetary support has to be reduced, and that is why we are having this discussion. And the free SHS is taking about almost 10% of the Ministry of Education budget. It means that it must be looked at and reviewed downwards. Another form of review must be looked at because cost of living is going up, food prices are also going up. The funding approach of the free SHS should also be reviewed. The source of funds should be made in such a way that parents should contribute to the funding of free SHS because government in the shortest possible time is going to cut that 17 billion support to Ministry of Education. How is the free SHS program going to be run? It means that parents must contribute. That's why the discussion on review is going on. The review can be positive.
Right, so that's Professor Pepra there making the point. There seems to be a connection problem. Mr. Kotoy, we're looking forward to your committee in Parliament actually holding government responsible or holding government to actually put in the necessary review needed for the free SHS to actually improve. I want to thank you, gentlemen, for joining us in this discussion. Kwesi Kwarteng, Dr. Anti, Kofi Asare, Mr. Notcho Kotoy, and Professor Pepra. I'm grateful for your time. My name is Aisha Ibrahim. Enjoy the rest of our programs.